Right, well, there's so many amazing VR speakers here today. I thought it might be quite fun to look at the latest advances in augmented reality and also how that might impact game developers in VR and whether there's any interesting areas where we can use VR and AR and blend them together as these devices come forward. So it's sort of slightly future speculative stuff, but hopefully it's going to be quite interesting. So I'm going to talk about AR, I'm going to talk a bit about HoloLens and Magic Leap and what we know about them, a bit about opportunities of blending them together, basically. My background is sort of making traditional video games for a long time, and then I started a company called nDreams about 8 years ago. This is us in our office in Farnborough. We're about 30 people now, and we've basically been focusing on VR for the last 18 months. We've got a couple of launch titles for the Gear VR. We've got launch titles coming up for pretty much every major console and PC VR headset, and we're doing a lot of work on VR. We're very passionate believers in VR. Probably most exciting is a game called The Assembly that we'll be talking about later this year, which is our biggest game, which will be is really gorgeous and does a lot of the stuff that the guys were talking about in terms of narrative and storyline and all sorts of things. So I won't talk about virtual reality other than to say, for me, the three things that make it so special are presence. You've heard about that from Dave earlier. It takes you to other worlds, and it's fantastic at scaling emotions. Emotions in VR are so much more powerful than they are on a TV looking at them, and that's one of the reasons that we've sort of fallen in love with it. The big challenges of VR, a lot of them have been solved. Low latency, high resolution screens, wide field of view, accurate rotational positional tracking is really good now. Controls are still an issue, they really are, and I think as Henrique mentioned, you will see some standard controls coming out. So I think moving your hands in front of a headset is the most obvious natural thing for players to do when you see them try a VR headset for the first time, and I suspect that will become part of a VR control system. And comfortable 3D movement. Moving around in a 3D environment when you're sat there is tricky. Turning on a stick and turning your head is tricky. There's some interesting design issues that we're all working on at the moment and the various companies developing for VR. And also, you know, the ideal VR thing will be untethered, and that works great for the Gear VR. I've had a chance to try it, but obviously not on the Oculus or the Morpheus at the moment. So first thing to talk about augmented reality is I'm not talking about 2D overlays like Google Glass, which isn't really augmented reality, it's sticking something over the front. And I'm not really talking about the phone augmented reality where you see it detects a flat surface and puts some things on it. What I'm talking about is depth aware, where the HoloLens and the Magic Leap, from what we can gather, actually sort of create a depth map of the scene in front of you. They know how far everything away is, and you can actually use that 3D model to kind of create and put things in. So for example, you could have a table in your chair, and you could have a character run around the table leg, and you could see him go behind the table leg and come in front of the table leg. There's a technology to do that now. So that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of AR today. There's two types of AR, see-through and pass-through. Pass-through is kind of basically like doing a VR headset, feeding in the camera, in stereo cameras, and feeding it into your eyes. The issue with that is it's not terribly natural. There's a little bit of delay between moving your head, and it's not how you're used to seeing the world. So by far and away, what most of the guys seem to be doing is see-through. So you actually have a visor which allows you to see the real photons coming from the real world beaming into your eyes. And that's great because that's just natural. You're not going to feel simulator sickness because you can look around and everything's instant and it's just what you're used to seeing. So see-through is what the HoloLens is doing, and from what we've heard, Magic Leap as well. One interesting issue with augmented reality is something called per pixel darkening. I don't know if you can make out just up here at the top of the screen and also down over here, I think, down there. It's a very interesting shot that Microsoft have done. It's a very dark scene with not a lot of bright stuff, but one of the issues that augmented reality has is that it can't darken, or at the moment, there's a question about whether the headsets can darken pixels. If you've got a very bright room, if there's lots of sunlight coming in, if you've got a big white table, everything appears like a ghost, and you can kind of see that ghosting on the little Minecraft tower on the top left. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they've solved that problem. If anybody nails this problem, suddenly you can basically obscure any pixel with your computer-generated world. You can effectively do VR over the top of your real view. Don't think it's going to happen with Microsoft HoloLens, but I do believe they may have solved this with Magic Leap, and that's going to be very interesting because it does allow you to completely obscure the world if that issue has been solved. The other thing that people talk about with augmented reality is soft and hard augmented reality. So soft is basically, you know, rendering stuff over the top of the real scene. When you move your head, it shakes a little bit. It's not quite there. It almost looks a little bit cartoony, but you know it's not real. That's fine. Like the Minecraft example, you know, it sits there on top. If it moves a few pixels as you spin your head around, that's fine. You know it's not real. Hard AR is the idea of creating something that you actually believe is there. So again, as in VR, you feel the sense of presence. You feel like you're actually there. Hard AR is the idea of actually having these things appear there. This is actually a computer-rendered snow dragon there that isn't there, but you know, if you passed that, you would believe it was actually really there. And that's a really tough challenge, because not only do you have to put it in the right place and make sure as you turn your head it doesn't move, it doesn't jigger around, but also it's got to pick up the lighting from the scene. You've got to know what the lighting is, what direction it's coming from, what the colour it is, and also you've got to deal with things like shadows. You can see in this instance the tree is casting a shadow on the snow dragon. So hard AR is a hugely complicated problem, which I don't think is going to be solved very soon, but that's the panacea. That's where augmented reality wants to get to, where you can look around the room and anything is put on top of it and it just feels real. That's going to be incredible. So let's talk a little bit about what we know about the HoloLens and the Magic Leap. From what we've seen and what we've heard, HoloLens is see-through. It has a darkened visor, which it uses to sort of darken the scene, which again helps you to make brighter things, because it can't do per pixel darkening, we believe. You want everything to be as dark as possible. So I don't think you'll be using the HoloLens with a bright sunshine streaming into your room and really big white furniture. It'll be much better into the darker areas. A depth buffer system, so it's able to track, use a Kinect style system to work out where blocks are, where the rooms are, where your tables are, where every little pixel in the room, sort of how deep it is away from you, which allows you to do some really clever stuff. Imagine having little armies running around the room, attacking jumping over your furniture, scaling down from the lights, all sorts of fun stuff, because you know the depth of where everything is. Limited field of view, and Microsoft have got over 75 augmented reality patents. They've been doing a lot of work in this. They bought a lot actually last year, so there's some really interesting stuff going on, and you may see even more coming out. Magic Leap's really interesting. Magic Leap are a company in the US they were invested in by Google Ventures, I think it is part of Google, for about $500 million. They're working on a very similar system to HoloLens. Not much has come out. They announced a little bit yesterday. It uses projected light rather than a screen, from what we can gather. So whether that's actually projecting straight into your eyeball, it's bouncing off the screen and into your eyeball, it's more like a projection system. What I've heard rumours of is that they're able to approximate the lighting in a room. So that would obviously be a little bit closer to hard AR. If you can work out roughly what the lighting is going to be in the different areas of the room, and then create a 3D model that's lit in the same way, even if it's just the direction of lighting, it's going to feel a lot more realistic. And again, I think there's a real possibility that they may have solved this issue of per pixel darkening. And if that's true, then you're going to be able to effectively cover up the real world with whatever you want to render from your computer, which would be incredibly cool, because it means you can then start blending VR and AR together. So this is a shot from the HoloLens. There you can see, I don't know if you guys can make it out here actually, you can see the room sort of faint through the image. So this is their Mars demo, and the idea is that they can use the technology to make you feel like you're somewhere else, in this case Mars, but you've still got the real room bits, the cupboards, the walls are in your vision a little bit, so you still feel grounded. That's the closest that I think the HoloLens is going to get to sort of VR. But what can we do if we have a headset that can do this darkening, that can actually render pixels over the top of the real view? Well, what'll be fun is, I've got some examples here. You could be watching the TV or listening to the radio, and then projected on the wall is a message that comes in, your new Destiny raid starting or something. You can then render over the top of a bit of the screen, and then switch from AR into VR, and suddenly you're in a Destiny VR world running around. I'm sure Destiny is the best example because it's a bit fast, but you're in a 3D world, and you're taking it blended instantly from your augmented reality headset whilst you're doing your everyday thing to jumping into a game. There's a fantastic game called Ingress, which Google did actually, which is a sort of augmented reality game which allows you to wander around the real world and see things laid over the top. So you can imagine going up to somewhere in the real world, finding somewhere, and then blending into VR, and suddenly you're playing a game where you're hacking into a network or you're doing something or other, and doing some really nice things that blend real world stuff with VR stuff. It almost comes in the sort of alternate reality game, that kind of things I think are going to be very, very interesting. And lastly, little things like, that if your girlfriend's away and she's missing you, suddenly a little doorway pops up on your table, you stare at the doorway for a few seconds, and suddenly you're transported into the doorway, into your little room, and you can have a romantic chat with her, or chill, or play a game, or whatever you want inside a VR world. So I think that there's going to be some really, really interesting areas for game designers to play with once this technology comes about, where you can blend from the real world to the virtual world, back again and back in again in really interesting ways. Which is going to be very exciting, actually, really fun. So for me, it's all going to be about seamlessly blending real and virtual. Now this is a little way off. VR is super exciting, and that's where we're focusing most of our efforts. But I think augmented reality, and particularly what Magic Leap and what Microsoft are doing, is certainly worth watching and playing with and seeing what's going to happen, because I think you are going to be able to do this kind of stuff in the future. I'm not quite sure how far away it is, but I think it's coming. So, experts are split over per pixel darkening. Some people swear it's technically not possible. Some people believe it is absolutely possible. There's a feeling that hard AR is very hard, so we're certainly some way from that. But that's the future, a pair of glasses that allow you to move into VR and to do AR over the top and to jump between the two, I think is ultimately where we're going to end up, and that's going to be a very special place. But we are getting closer, and as I said, games are going to be, that do this, I think will be exciting opportunities mixing real and virtual together. Magic Leap, I think, may be a game changer, and I think it's well worth keeping an eye on this company because they're doing some very, very cool stuff. But HoloLens, I think, could be equally exciting. So there you are. That was my little bit on augmented reality and VR. If you've got any questions, just shout.
Back with the beard, then we'll come back to you. Oh, it's Kevin. Sorry, I couldn't see Kevin. I'm blinded by the lights.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Patrick, as always. Cast AR, your feelings?
I think it's a fantastic piece of, I mean, we're following a few different bits of hardware that allow you to track stuff and to do other bits and pieces. I don't know, I haven't used the Cast AR myself, so I'm not able to give a lot of comment. They're here today, they're not showing off today? No. I haven't played enough to myself to be honest.
Fantastic. So yeah, chap on the front row who's I asked you to ask questions and you've taken that with gusto, so setting an example.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's good.
Also a question about existing technology. The 13th lab acquired by Oculus recently. Have you introduced yourself with their, or have your guys introduced themselves with their SDK, and what do you think about the single camera SLAM they have in development?
We haven't. I mean, we've been following certainly the idea that we believe Oculus will have a camera. Well, ultimately the best solution is to have a camera on the front of the headset that allows you just to track the movement of your hands. That's what we believe the control system will be. I think they certainly bought a company that does that. That may be the company you're referring to.
No, that's a Nimble VR.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, they licensed the technology from Germany, like the hardware.
Yeah.
But the 13th lab is the SLAM technology, spatial area localization and mapping. That use the mobile devices for tracking 3D, let's say.
Yeah, fantastic. It's effectively a mobile version of the Kinect.
I was just curious if you.
No, we haven't. I mean, to be honest with you, we haven't done a lot of research into AR. This is a new area that we're really interested and keen to find out about. So, just like you guys, it's an area we're going to be keeping track of and trying to play with. VR is really our baby, but we're so excited by the possibilities of both.
Thank you for a good presentation.
Brilliant. Okay, and one last chance for any other questions. I keep forgetting to look to the left over here. I don't see any hands. So yeah. Oh, brilliant. Sorry. Yeah, right down there at the front.
Hi. Yeah, really interested in the crossover between AR and VR. Would you have an opinion on, whether we'll end up with one headset? I don't think we said that, did we? I mean, it seems to me there's an opportunity, isn't there?
I think that's where it will end up. I don't know how long it will take to get there, but it makes sense. I mean, for me, the ultimate solution will, you've seen mobile phones get lighter and lighter and lighter since they came out and being the big bricks to what we've got now and what they do. And I think VR headsets will be exactly the same. I think the ultimate solution is a pair of lightweight glasses that allow you to see through, that does the see-through AR, that allows you to draw stuff over the top, and then allows you to switch into VR and completely cover your vision. And ultimately, that's where I think we'll get to, and I think that'll be a really exciting place, but it will take several years to get there, I'm sure.
Thanks.
Nice one, brilliant. Well, thanks Patrick.